Hey guys, in this video I wanna share 7 kinda forgotten RPGs. You know, the kind of video game that most of the times is entertaining to play, but somehow few people get to see. And there's no particular order, so let's begin with Grim Dawn. This is the spiritual successor of Titanfall, and reminiscent to Diablo. I know I'm stretching things with this entry, because as far as I know, it is cherished by some, and perhaps a bit overrated, where we can choose between classes and then add something like a secondary class in a sense, where depending how we combine things, we will unlock an advanced subclass. That of course is one of the coolest things, because you can mess with the system in many ways. Now add another layer of complexity, depending which stats you increase, because that dictates the kind of weapons and stuff you can equip. And then there are devotion points, similar to Skyrim, where you can combine stuff in many ways. So this is how you can specialize builds. All of this accomplishes a level of customization that many RPGs lack. Unfortunately, not everything is that cool, because while it is true that every class has active and passive skills, depending what you decided to do, probably you will end up using the same 2 or 3 skills to clean the areas. And its OST is kinda meh. I mean, I can listen to it for a while, but then it becomes a bit repetitive. Despite that, I consider it's worth diving into this mess, as it is a lot of fun while exploring the world. From here, let's follow with Folklore. Time ago, this game was recommended in the comments, so I gave it a check and it was definitely worth it. Here we have an interesting execution, as the game takes on Irish places and some popular elements in between, where it begins in an intriguing way, as Ellen, one of the main protagonists, receives a letter from her deceased mother, while Kids, an editor, gets a call from someone who's asking for help, from a village named Doolin. This is how Ellen and Kids find each other, where Kids thought that Ellen was the one who made the phone call. Seconds later they see that the person in front of them falls to the ground, to then disappear. From here we will have to play with both characters, as they complement each other's story. It can be a turn off for some because you will see the same areas and missions are similar, but I consider it is worth it, as it is an intriguing tale, where both characters have unique ways to play. This is an action RPG where you have to absorb the souls from the monsters you find along the journey, and assign them to your bottoms, so then you can use their skills to fight. The experience was smooth and entertaining, so if you're looking for something different in this world of RPGs, Folklore is a nice option, as it is original in a lot of things. In the next entry, Kingdoms of Amalur: Rare Reckoning. This is an RPG that takes a decent time to see the best things, because its story is something standard and already seen. Where it's worth diving a bit more is in its lore. It is quite deep and well written. Then again, it takes time to see those great things, so if you wanna have a lot of fun in something like 2 hours, you better look into another direction, because something similar might happen with its world at first, as it is reminiscent to the 2000s MMORPGs. However, you can find outlandish areas down the line, and get lost in its vast world, where ironically you will feel that the dungeons are perhaps a bit too small. Gameplay-wise, this is an action RPG where you can choose between 4 races with different bonuses, and then your class. This is an entry that I recommend to play with a controller because the joystick feels really natural, unlike the keyboard and mouse. Anyways, while advancing you can unlock different skills and weapons. In a sense, it reminds me a lot to God of War and World of Warcraft. Now imagine that you combine them, but just taking a few of the great things. That is how you get this entry. With that, I don't mean to say it is bad. Kingdoms of Amalur is a solid game worth a try. However, keep in mind that it doesn't really innovate in something, so no wonder why it was abandoned in the sea of time. And also because when it was launched, entries like Skyrim and Dark Souls were already in the market few months before. Perhaps not the best of moments to compete. Whatever the case, I consider this game as a small hidden gem. For the next entry, Unchained Blades. Yep, I'll say my line with these entries. In this channel we appreciate the RPGs, and this is another game that passed under the radar. Now, to avoid confusion, this entry takes on all the hard things a good first-person dungeon crawler needs. So it is grindy, you're going to have a dated feeling, some random encounters here and there, and they will beat the heck out of you as usual. Now, for those who are into this genre, we are going to follow a cocky character named Fang, Dragon Emperor who's transforming into a human because he doesn't respect the world goddess Clunea, so he embarks on a quest of revenge. Its gameplay at first is quite slow, because you will get into several tutorials which unfortunately diminish the experience, but getting past that you will move around a big dungeon where it is going to be needed to find different keys to keep on moving forward. As for your party members, they are found along the journey. They are likable companions, but sometimes few words are exchanged between them and that's it. And it is possible to capture monsters in a sense, but it can be a bit of a chore to keep them. Personally, I consider Unchanged Blades solid, so it is a decent option if you wanna check on another kind of DRPG. Let's follow with Crimson Gen Saga, or Astonishing Story 2, but it had a bit of a bad fame, so its name was changed depending from the region. This is one of those kind of forgotten games in the PSP, and surprisingly developed in South Korea by Ironos. As far as I know, they just developed this one and a Harvest Moon game. It is a bit of a shame because this entry is quite good. Story-wise, we are going to follow Killian, who had quite the night and then has to attend graduation. Talk about bad luck, because this game portrays several of those moments, and as if things are not bad enough because of side effects, Killian will have to look after the ancient artifacts. For the most part, it is a good story as characters have a lot of personality. Gameplay-wise, it is straightforward on many ways. It has an old feeling but is stupidly enjoyable, where you can change some characters as you advance. Once you level up, your stats will increase as any other RPG, but skills and magics are obtained with other points, so you can choose different things from a skill tree. And it is quite packed with elements and things that have to be considered before some combats. Despite all of this, then again, it is a straightforward game, with a good story and gameplay worth a try. Definitely a good gem. In the next entry, Albert Odyssey, Legend of Eldian. Yet another forgotten game and also a bit obscure. This is the third entry of the saga that has the same name, but don't worry, this is a spin-off, so there's no need to play the previous entries. Here we are going to follow Pike and his talking sword, a child who had the misfortune of losing his village, after it was attacked by a bunch of demons. Moments later, a harpy saves Pike from this destiny, whereas he grows, he's shamed and mocked off, as he's a human in the mid of harpies. And later, as if things couldn't get messier, the harpy that saved him was turned into stone, in a sense beginning this tale. I know it begins in the most typical for a JRPG, but truth be told, as you advance, this is one of the games that engages nicely and offers an epic ending. Gameplay-wise, this is a turn-based RPG with random encounters. Fortunately, this was improved on the Western version, because the Japanese version was a mess with so many of them. There are still lots, but it's much more passable, so the pace feels slow. On another kind of negative side is that some bosses are sponges of HP, where we are going to follow the same formula of attack, attack, heal. Despite all of that, this is a good RPG. It doesn't reinvent any wheel, but it executes several things in a nice way. I recommend it for old school players. And let's finish with Champions of Norrath. The Champions games are all in nature, and this is no exception. It can be amazing but also punishing, if you have no idea what you're doing. Sometimes in my DRPGs reviews you can hear me say things like, you need to think in a clear path to progress your characters. Well, that same thing can be extrapolated here, because in Champions of Norrath, a class, weapons, skills, and future investments mark your character since the get-go. In other words, if you mess up because you wanted to experiment something that you had no idea what was going to do, congrats! Your character will have a harsh beginning, or even ending, if you keep on setting things without a plan on mind. So since the get-go, I will say that I only recommend this game for those who are patient enough to check skills, weapons, and make a plan. Now, I like the idea because your choices actually matter, but it can be unfriendly, and because of that, this game can be extraordinary or a hard pass. To me, it holds great replay value because maybe your first playthrough was a mess, but learning some side things as you advance, probably you bring another weird idea that works in funny ways, or simply reroll different units. Now, I focus on this aspect a lot because that is the whole deal with this game. Roll some characters, make a plan, and jump into the fray. Tactical but straightforward in nature. So yeah, another forgotten game definitely worth the time. With this, I hope you found this video informative. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.